I'm thrilled to be here to share a little bit about Bon Secours' sustainability journey and to talk about how air, clean air, and air pollution affects our health. Before I get started into the health aspects, this is a chance for us to do a little commercial for Bon Secours, so we can't ever miss that opportunity. Bon Secours Health System is a $3.3 billion not-for-profit Catholic healthcare system, and we own or manage 19 acute care hospitals across the East Coast. So we're a fairly large healthcare system, and we're soon going to announce September the, 4th or 1st, our merger with Mercy Health out of Cincinnati, which will make us the 5th largest Catholic healthcare system in the United States. And I'm proud to say that Mercy Health also feels as strongly as Bon Secours does about sustainability. So we're thrilled to be able to join forces and begin to combine our two mission-oriented organizations to try to help make the world a better place. We employ now about 22,000 caregivers across these 6 states. So why is it important for Bon Secours to be part of a sustainability effort? We're really in a good place because we do have a very strong mission in our organization. So this picture of the Earth is very famous. It's the first time we humans got a chance to see what the place that we live looked like. It's vital, there's light, there's dark, and to me it kind of speaks to why are we doing the work that we're all doing relative to sustainability. Why is it so important for us to be there and to continue to learn about what sustainability means? So I want to talk a little bit, and I'll be a little academic for you, and you can thank Furman for that. So I am a proud graduate of the Furman Postgraduate Program in Sustainability. They do a wonderful job at educating business and industry. I think I see somebody here from Furman. Raise your hand. If you're interested in that program or want to send somebody to it, I would highly recommend that if you want to begin to look at how do you set up a sustainability program for your organization. So within Bon Secours, when we started our journey, probably now it's been almost 10 years ago, relative to sustainability, we thought about what theory of sustainability do we want to attest to, what speaks to who we are as an organization. And we looked at our common future, which was the Brundtland Report, because we are faith-based and we do feel like it speaks to us, which is sustainability is the ability to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And so as we built our sustainability platform and started looking at what was important to us as an organization, both from a healthcare perspective and from being a business in the community, what spoke to us and what made sense. So this is our background. So just a few structural elements of our program. We did create a vision statement and guiding principles, and we set the areas that we wanted to focus on. We started with waste and energy and toxic chemicals and have migrated to water. We continue to integrate it into our procurement program, and I'm sure that as we collaborate with Mercy Health, it's going to grow even stronger. And our platform for what we want to do is going to get even stronger. We did put together a 3-year action plan that morphed into a 3-year strategic plan. So every 3 years, representatives from all of those 19 acute care facilities get together and we create, along with the sisters, what we want to work on as an organization. Then each local market, so the Greenville market, has a sustainability council or a green team. And it's a multidisciplinary team that works to take that corporate vision, that corporate strategy, and localize it in our market so that we can continue to move our organization, make a difference, as well as make good changes for the Greenville community. Because we want to make sure that we're setting that example for who we are. So today, what I'm going to focus on a little bit, just from the health standpoint, is what are the health impacts of poor air or of air pollution. So I'm going to cover 4 topics, and then I don't know if there'll be a chance for you guys to ask questions, but we'll see how that works. If you want to ask a question in the middle of it, that doesn't bother me either, so we'll go from there. But I want to cover major health effects, who are our vulnerable populations, what are a little bit about air quality standards as it relates to health, and then just some health tips for poor air quality. So, obviously, particulate matter and ozone are probably the 2 biggest of the top 6 that we see that have a health impact. So the particulate matter, we know, are those microscopic particles in the atmosphere that can be hazardous to your health. So things like soot, liquid droplets. The smaller the particle, the more bad, or the more negative health impact it can have, because they're going to penetrate down into your respiratory system and they're going to cause problems. And if you look at what the information that Dean just shared with us, particulate matter is still a problem for Greenville. And so we have an opportunity to do better there. So particulate matter can cause irritation in your lungs, which causes an increased permeability to lung tissue. It can aggravate COPD, which is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and it causes a loss of airway function, which means you can't breathe. And guess what? Breathing is good, right? I like doing it every day. It causes an inflammation of lung tissue. So these chemicals are going to penetrate into your tissue and they're going to stay. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that inflammatory response that you mentioned, because I read that study too and I thought it was pretty interesting. The particulate matter can also cause a change in your blood chemistry. It can result in blood clots. Now, again, this is where we get the connection between a negative impact on cardiovascular disease, and it can also increase your susceptibility to viral or bacterial pathogens that could lead to pneumonia. So I think we're covering the whole respiratory and cardiovascular realm here. High particulate matter is not good for respiratory and cardiac health. The ozone, we're going to see a lot of irritation with your eyes. We have more dry eye now, I think, than we've ever had before, because there's a whole lot more commercials on TV. I think we can always tell when a problem is happening, because there's all these products. I think that's reverse economic growth, but nobody asked me. It can also irritate, the ozone can irritate your nose, your throat. We get more hacking coughs that aren't related to cold or flu. And then we know asthma, which we'll talk about. So, public health and air quality is not a new concept. As far back as the 1930s, science, or the scientific community, started looking at the correlation between air quality and public health issues. We've seen or heard about all over the world issues that happened that resulted in death or a higher sickness in the population. And so we know that there's a problem. We know that particulate matter and ozone account for 90% of the identified risk. And we know that air pollution has been correlated with an increased risk of cancer, which we also see going on the rise. Okay? And it's interesting to me because I think sometimes we are, I don't want to say apathetic, because technology and medicine has allowed us to have lower mortality rates because we're getting better at treating people who have these problems. Well, what we really need to think about is how do we prevent people from getting it altogether? Because why don't we want people to have a good quality of life? So, what are our major effects, or what is the mechanism of air quality on health? So, in my world, as a clinician, I will look at, does it cause it or does it make it worse? Okay, does it cause it or does it make it worse? So air pollution exposure is going to worsen cardiovascular disease or respiratory disease. It's not going to cause it. So you can't say, oh, and I'm sure the insurance providers wouldn't buy that anyway. It can cause, though, and this is the thing we need to listen to, it can cause cancer, asthma, and now we've learned diabetes because of the inflammatory response. So let's talk about some of these diseases in a little bit more detail. The health effects on population are going to be premature death, this is our mortality side, heart attacks and stroke, asthma, cancer, and inflammatory response. So the strongest evidence for premature death from air pollution is from our particulate matter. Now that should make everybody sit up if you were multitasking or looking at your iPad or cell phone. Just with what Dean said, we were a D. Okay, I don't want to die prematurely. I'm about to have my first grandchild, and I'm telling you, I'm ready to get started. So I want the air to be good for my grandchild and for my grandchild's children. So if I have respiratory disease or cardiovascular disease, my risk of death is going to be a lot higher if the particulate matter levels are high. Typically we see this more in our geriatric population. And guess what? That population group is rising, especially in our geography. We're becoming a really great place to retire to. So again, a chance for us to take care of that. Ozone exposure is not as much associated with premature death. If you have really bad asthma or late-stage COPD, the chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, there could be a causal linkage, but it's definitely greater. It's definitely greater with the particulate matter. Our cardiovascular effects. Studies show us that an exposure to the particulate matter of 2.5 and ozone can worsen pre-existing chronic disease. So what we see here is an increased number of hospitalizations and emergency department visits. Now, you may think personally, well, okay, I don't have cardiovascular disease, so I don't really care about that slide. But a lot of you in here are business owners, right? So you have people who work for you who are insured. What happens to your premiums when you have an increased number of people who go to the emergency room or have hospitalizations because of chronic disease? The cost of doing business goes up for you. So there's a linkage here for that. I mean, we want people to choose to live here because we have a great environment, but we also have to think of that business side of health. And let's face it, there's one with this. That's a huge connection. Air pollution isn't going to cause cardiovascular disease, but it's definitely going to worsen it. Our respiratory effects. So poor air quality, the biggest correlation we see here is with asthma. Now, asthma is declining for adults, but you know who it's not declining for? Children. So there has been, in fact, most of the hospitalization and emergency room visits for children are because of asthma-related episodes or events. So ozone is the bad guy here. It's a very, very, very potent respiratory toxin. So we need to figure out how we will continue to monitor those ozone levels. And Bon Secours has been a proud sponsor with 10 at the top for the No Idling campaign to make sure that we try to prevent that. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about some of the other things that we've done because healthcare sometimes is hard on the environment just because of the business that we have. I think I'll kind of talk about that before I went past the slide. Traffic-related air pollutants are going to worsen asthma. I also think secondhand smoke is another thing that impacts the teenage population when it comes to air pollution or issues. So, that's probably not the focus of today's conversation, but we can talk about that too sometime. Cancer risk from air pollution. There are such a thing as toxic air contaminants that are specific pollutants that have an impact on cancer risk. Now we're getting into the things that bad air causes, okay? So bad air causes cancer. I know that's scary to me to hear. There have been human epidemiological studies and animal exposure studies that show that air pollution is linked to cancer risk. So we're not just standing up here pulling this out of the air. These studies have to have a scientific review panel, which is a peer review kind of mandated approach to looking at the study, so that we make sure that as we share this, that it is really true. So what contaminants do we worry about with toxic air? What are those, what are the big six, as I call them, that we want to say has an impact? So I look at nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide, lead, benzene, formaldehyde. All of those things are toxic air contaminants that can increase the risk of being carcinogenic. And so you want to go back and take a look and say, I know we built a cancer center about 4 years ago on our Millennium campus, and that was one of our guiding principles. Was we sat down and made a list of all the toxic air contaminants that could not be in anything that we put in that building. And Millipass and Smith was our partner on that, and did a wonderful job making sure that we stayed true to that. Because why would you want to build a building or create an environment that just worsened the reason why people were even coming to you? And it's important for healthcare facilities, and I think GHS does a good job with that too. We're lucky in our community to have two really good healthcare organizations that really care about public health, and they care about the community. So here's the one I'm excited to talk to you about, which is the inflammatory response impact. So as Dean shared with you, the Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis did a study with 1.7 million veterans. Not a small subgroup, 1.7 million veterans that they followed for 8.5 years. And what they found was veterans that were exposed to air pollution between 5 and 10 micrograms per cubic meter had a 21% of them developed diabetes. That's staggering to me. And when the researchers went back and tried to dig down into the physiology of why did this happen, they found that air pollution triggers an inflammatory response in the pancreas. So just to give you guys a little physiology lesson, your pancreas produces insulin, which is a hormone. And insulin's job is to, like a transport truck, it goes into the bloodstream, it attaches itself to the glucose molecule, and it helps it get back in the cell. And then it's used for energy, because glucose is the body's primary energy source. So what happens when the pancreas and that insulin reaction isn't working properly, your blood sugar stays too high. Well, glucose is a really large molecule, and it can damage that vascular lining in a blood vessel very quickly. And so then all of a sudden, not only do you have diabetes, you have vascular disease, which leads you to an increased risk of stroke. So there's a whole lot of problems that can build on this. So to me, that inflammatory response study opens up a whole new realm of, oh my gosh, we've got to get air quality into the minds of everyone from a public health issue. So who are our vulnerable populations? Children, the elderly, people with chronic disease already, because we know there's problems that air pollution can worsen those diseases, and they're already trying to manage them. People who work outdoors all the time and athletes, people in low socioeconomic communities. Now, you know, this is one that I guess from a standpoint of working at a faith-based organization, it really got me because a lot of our work in the community is in that population group. So with childhood, why is it a vulnerable population? Because they're outside more. Okay, they're playing, we hope, outside and not in front of the TV or the computer or their iPad. And they have a higher breathing rate than adults do. The elderly, because unfortunately we haven't gotten chronic conditions under control in the United States yet, and we still have a high number of people who have heart disease, lung disease, diabetes. And then poverty, the low socioeconomic status, poverty, low level of education, and there's, I guess, I'll word it as environmental justice community indicators that maybe prevent this population group from having the same benefit. If you're homeless, it's kind of hard to get out of bad air. So I think that would make sense to all of us. So our air quality standards, you know, how does healthcare work with this? You know, what is our involvement and how do we find out about it? Well, both of the healthcare organizations in Greenville do community health risk assessments. And these community health risk assessments show us how these toxic air contaminants increase health risk in neighborhoods. And so we look at what is the risk of asthma, what is the cardiovascular risk, and we use this community health risk assessment information to help us plan programs that we want to go out and do, things that we want to do to help in the neighborhoods that we have targeted. I think too, that connection between those ambient air quality standards, they really are a public health initiative. And we know that those national air, the ambient air quality standards are set around reducing health impact. So it just makes sense to have that happen. I think the Clean Air Scientific Advisory Committee is continuing to do great work, as Dean said, that helps set the standards for us and hopefully give us guidelines on things that we can change. And so everybody knows the big six, right? We know that it's ozone, particulate matter, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide, and lead. So those are the big six pollutants that are in the area, but we know there's other chemicals like the benzene, like formaldehyde, that we know that can have a negative impact on cancer risk, and those things are aerosolized. What have I done? Okay, so what are our health tips around for poor air quality? Well, stay indoors if you have a chronic condition or if you're unfortunate and have had a health condition that has arisen from living in an area that has poor air quality. Use HEPA filters, especially in your sleeping spaces. If you have COPD or respiratory distress or asthma, these HEPA filters can help clean the air of that matter. Keep your home clean. If you have carpet, take it out. Hard surface floors are a lot better in trying to help maintain health. If you have a problem with this, don't use a fireplace, don't smoke, and unfortunately don't light candles because you're still going to get a little bit of soot from that, from a particulate matter standpoint. Take off your shoes as soon as you get inside. Change your clothes if you work outside and take a shower so that you can kind of reduce the impact of that. And then unfortunately you may have to skip mid-afternoon exercise on warm days just to try to help make that better. So ongoing scientific studies I think are needed in this area. I think we see, just the new study that came out about the inflammatory response makes me think that we need to continue to have research in this area. Because I think in some areas, just because of growth, and that growth may not be mindful growth or sustainable growth, there could be multi-pollutant impacts or exposures that happen. And we need to, in the health community, and work with the business community to continue to understand what that impact is. We want to make sure that we're being smart about putting housing close to industrial facilities that may inadvertently cause higher pollution areas. Or we need to work with that business and industry to make sure that there's a connection between those things and that we do a better job of that. We need to think about the impacts of vulnerable population, because believe it or not, every one of us in here is responsible for public health. Now, that's a hard thing to, and maybe an onerous thing to have on our shoulders, but we are all responsible for that. And then, this is also something that's very interesting to me. I wish I was going to live longer so that I could go back to school and get another degree in it. And it's the role of genetics or the genome testing that we're finding that has so many links with chronic disease. And I think that we are seeing that the genetic makeup of a person can make somebody more susceptible to air pollution or to particulate matter than maybe someone else. And I think that's an interesting, it's an interesting concept for us to study. So, what is Bon Secours doing about air quality? Well, one, we participate in the No Idling initiative. We actually are proud to have a public-private partnership with Clemson University and GreenLink we sponsor a bus route between campuses that helps, we actually help pay for that bus route to make sure that we can reduce the impact and reduce the number of cars on the road. We have charging stations for electric cars on all of our campuses that we fund. And our focus is on surgical services within our hospital. When we put people to sleep, we use chemicals to take you down to those levels so you don't remember all the things we do to you. We take really good care of you. We have great quality scores and great outcome scores, so I'm just messing with you guys. But one of the things we have accountability for related to air is to make sure that we capture that anesthesia gas that could go off and that we're not venting that out into the world. So a lot of birds will feel really good. And we want to make sure that we're working on that and that we're being responsible. We're being responsible community members. So thank you so much for allowing me the time to talk to you guys, and certainly at the breakout sessions or afterwards, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thanks, Dean.